And we are now going to be diving into our keynote address. Linda Bedeau is providing our keynote address today on the topic of building pathways for future of Indigenous communities. Linda Bedeau is an enrolled member of the Red Lake Band of Chippewa Indians and serves as Director of Operations and Extension at the Red Lake Nation College. With more than 40 years of tribal leadership in tribal governance, corporate management, health systems administration, higher education, and federal program management, she has dedicated her career to advancing Indigenous self-determination, strengthening health systems, and expanding educational opportunities for American Indian communities. Ms. Bedeau previously served as Deputy Health Systems Administrator for the Indian Health Service. She played a key leadership role during the COVID-19 crisis for the Red Lake Nation and helped establish the Obashing Treatment Facility to ensure long-term sustainable behavioral health services. Ms. Bedeau has secured and managed millions of dollars in federal and state grants, expanded tribal health funding, and mentored generations of emerging Indigenous leaders. She currently teaches tribal finance, accounting, and budgeting at the University of Minnesota Duluth and at Red Lake Nation College. Her work bridges Indigenous knowledge, executive leadership, and systems level transformation to strengthen the future of Native health and education. And believe it or not, that is a truncated, shortened version of her bio because she has such accomplishments listed. Thank you so much for lending your expertise as our keynote speaker today, and the floor is yours.
Thank you so much for that wonderful introduction. And I forgot to put that I'm also a jingle dress dancer, which is our healing dress. All right, today I want to talk about building pathways for the future of Indigenous communities. So, Anine, hello, relatives, and honored guests. And believe me, we have honored guests. Mary, you've done a wonderful job with putting this together with your staff and thank you guests who have accepted joining with. We need your expertise and partnership. Again, my name is Linda Bedeau, and I'm an enrolled member of the Red Lake Band of Chippewa Indians. It is truly an honor to welcome you to this year's Indigenous Health, Education, and Resource Task Force, IHEART, Virtual Summit. This is kind of cool. I like this virtual stuff because as I get older, I don't like to travel as much. I want to express my deepest gratitude to Dr. Mary Owen, founder and co-lead of IHEART, and to her staff whose vision, dedication, and tireless work brought this gathering together. So McWitch, thank you. Thank you for creating a national space where Indigenous voices, knowledge, and leadership guide the conversation about our future. I also thank each of you, educators, students, tribal leaders, healthcare professionals, policymakers, and community members for your commitment to strengthening pathways for American Indians and Alaskan Natives, Native people in the health professions. Today, we gather not only to discuss challenges, but to build solutions. For decades, representation of American Indian, Alaskan Native individuals in health professions has remained painfully low. While our communities continue to face some of the greatest health disparities in the nation. This is not due to lack of the ability, not lack of intelligence, not lack of dedication. It is due to barriers, systematic, historical, educational, geographical, economic, and cultural. IHEART exists because improving Indigenous health outcomes requires Indigenous health professionals trained, supported, and empowered within systems that respect our communities and culture. When we talk about building pathways, we are talking about much more than recruitment. The pathways includes early educational support, exposure to career possibilities, academic preparation, financial access, cultural belonging, mentorship, leadership development, and long-term career sustainability. And perhaps most importantly, hope. because you cannot become what you cannot see. When we talk about system level change, IHEART's mission recognizes that individual success stories are not enough. We must transform systems. We must develop regional networks that create sustainable change, and that process has begun. We must foster leaders at local and national levels. We need to have those partnerships. We got to continue to do and gain those partnerships, regardless of what the platform is on our agenda. We need them. We must identify solutions that work and share them widely. And we must center Indigenous expertise, not as an addition, but as a foundation. And I wanted to touch on policy matters and how it matters. The policy paper development session led by Dr. Mary Owen is critically important. It really, really is. I'm so glad that's part of this session, these sessions. Policies shape opportunity. Policies influence admissions, funding, licensure, training environments, and workforce development. They do. They really do. As a former federal employee, I worked on a lot of policy committees that changed many things that were creating barriers with access to care. When policies ignore Indigenous realities, rural isolation, underfunded schools, judicial, I can't even say it, I can't talk. Jurisdictional, here we go, complexities and historical trauma, students face barriers long before they apply to professional programs. And this is still to this day. We must identify solutions rooted in community knowledge and experience. So here's my pitch to all of you. A great place to start. One of the strongest solutions already exists. Tribal colleges and universities. I speak not only as an educator, not only as a mother and a grandmother, but as a builder of one of these institutions. Red Lake Nation College is a great place to start. I am honored to be a co-founder of the Red Lake Nation College, a vision that began in 2000. That's how long it's taken to get us here. Through collaboration with our tribal leaders, which I thank them and honor them. Some of them are not here today, but they really wrapped their support around this and made it happen. Our elders and our community members who believed that our nation needed its own institution of higher learning. Today, Red Lake Nation College is a two-year tribal college located on the beautiful shores of the Red Lake in northern Minnesota and at a new state-of-the-art site in downtown Minneapolis, Minnesota. I welcome you both to look online, www.rlnc.edu, and it'll show you the beautiful sites. And if you want to be an adjunct professor, please send your resume. Our facility offers global relevant courses combined with Ojibwe language and culture. A powerful blend of native, innovative, and traditions that prepare students of all backgrounds for the 21st century workforce. We are accredited by the Higher Learning Commission, recognized by the United States Department of Education. Admission is accessible. Students need a GED or a high school diploma to apply. This opens doors for those who might otherwise be excluded from higher education. Our mission is clear. It's very clear. To provide excellent higher education grounded in the Ojibwe language and culture of the Red Lake Nation. Our work is guided by 7 Ojibwe values: humility, truth, courage, honesty, respect, love, and wisdom. These values shape not only education, but leadership and service. Tribal colleges create environments where students feel they belong, culturally, academically, and personally. When students feel supported, they succeed. And when they succeed, communities thrive. Education is not simply individual advancement, it's nation building. Wrap your head around that. It's nation building, not only tribal nations, but our country. Every Indigenous health professional strengthens community wellness, every single one of them. Every Indigenous administrator strengthens systems. They do. Every Indigenous educator creates future leaders. Every Indigenous student who succeeds tells younger children, you belong here too. And I do that all the time. When we talk about leadership development, IHEART emphasis development systems focus leaders. Indigenous leadership is grounded in service to community, to ancestors, and to future generations. We need leaders who can navigate complex systems while remaining rooted in cultural values. It's like keep your feet on the ground and keep reaching for the stars. But handle it as you're reaching for those stars. Try to handle it as you can reach those stars. Leadership development must begin early and continue throughout a person's career. That is a main goal of all of the environment in the Red Lake Nation on our tribal lands. They're told since they're young that they will become leaders, and we're training you to be a leader. Mentorship. No pathway exists without mentorship. Somebody must say, I believe in you. You can do this. You are not alone. Mentorship is especially critical for first-generation students navigating unfamiliar systems. Many of our American Indian students, they'll be the first one to go to college. And I was years and years and years ago, the first one in our family. Now we have a physician in our family, which is I'm very proud of. All of us kids did some good things, my brothers and sisters. Okay, we need to touch on community responsibility. This work we are doing belongs to all of us. It's not pointing fingers or wherever. We have to be responsible and take ownership of it. It belongs to the families, the communities, institutions, and governments. Supporting students may mean providing resources, encouragement, cultural grounding, and practical assistance. When communities invest in their people, these people invest back into their communities. And that is true. But that is a very true statement. So hope for our future. Despite the challenges, I remain hopeful. I always do. And I tell my students and my friends, we've got to remain hopeful. I see determined students. I see expanding tribal colleges. I see Indigenous professionals returning home to serve. I see collaborations like IHEART, bringing people together across regions. And I see a generation ready to lead. As you enter the policy development session, I invite you to think boldly. What barriers must be removed? What supports must be strengthened? What policies must change? What partnerships must be built? What pathways must be created or rebuilt? Most importantly, how do we ensure Indigenous students not only enter health professions, but also thrive and lead within them? In closing, please remember our ancestors did not simply endure hardship. They carried a vision. They prayed, they sacrificed, and held tightly our languages, our songs, and our ceremonies, and our ways of knowing so that they would live, not just survive, but live with dignity, strength, and opportunity in a changing world. Because of them, we walk in two worlds today. We navigate modern systems, universities, hospitals, and governments, while still carrying the heartbeat of our nation within us. Every time we speak our language, every time we sing our songs, every time we dance, teach, heal, and lead, we fulfill the hopes our ancestors carried forward for us. They did not preserve our culture so that they would live in museums. They preserved them so that we would live, they would live in us. Now the responsibility is ours. We must build systems strong enough that our children and grandchildren will thrive, not by leaving their identity behind, but carrying it forward with pride. Building pathways for Indigenous communities is not just professional work. It's sacred work, it's nation-building work, and it's future-generating work. Work, work, work. Together we create and have created a world where Indigenous students become doctors, nurses, researchers, administrators, and leaders, while remaining fully rooted in who they are. So that one day our descendants will say, they remembered us, they prepared the way, they made it possible. Miigwech, for all the work you do, for the knowledge you carry, and for the commitment you have shown to our communities. May this summit strengthen your resolve, inspire new partnerships, and move us closer to the future our ancestors dreamed of. Building pathways is long-term work, but together it is possible. Miigwech. Thank you for your time, your dedication, and your commitment to our communities. I wish you a productive summit and a powerful policy session.
Miigwech, Linda. Linda, we have quite a bit of time before our next panel. Are you able to take some questions?
Absolutely. Yes.
All right. I'm going to start you off on one while we're waiting for folks to get their gears going as far as the question they want to ask you. But the question that I have is that you and I had an opportunity to talk when we were both up at White Earth for another student presentation, a student event. And you mentioned that a couple of your students who got into the college just with GEDs went on to get master's degrees. We're going to be hearing from some students who have navigated both tribal colleges and then gone on to four-year colleges. But can you give us any insight onto what you thought was helpful for those students, or anything at all about those students who had such success?
Yes. One student, they graduated from the University of Minnesota. Actually, was one of my students because I teach the finance and accounting. That's my area of expertise is business and accounting. But that young lady came to our college, and she actually dropped out of school. She just didn't want to go to the Red Lake High School. She was kind of very mature. So she didn't want to, she was ready. So I told her to go and sign up for school. And if she had any help, if she needed any help with anything, which I knew she wasn't going to need it. She was one of those students that just passed with, graduated with honors, then went on to Bemidji State University and got her business administration degree. And then went on to the university. I wrote a recommendation letter for her. She got in at the University of Minnesota, Duluth, and graduated with honors there. So that's one success story, but there's a couple of others. But what we do differently than any other, I'll have to say, than any other college in this entire United States and possibly the world, is we have like a wraparound program. So we have one student may have about 6 people around them. And so they may call me. I may be one of them. They may call me and panicking because they need to get an assignment done the next morning. They have to have it in by midnight. And I said, well, we can sit here tonight and we can go through that assignment one-on-one with you, whatever assignment it was. Or you can get a good night's sleep and we'll both talk to the instructor and we'll both get it done tomorrow. She didn't need any help. She was just panicking because it needed to be done. And I said, you need to learn how to communicate with your teacher to let them know, because their day is a 24-hour day. And we keep telling them that we got 24 hours, and every day a sun comes up and a new sun brings a new day, which brings, you got to leave everything behind you and get them used to that. And so we have a team of tutoring round the clock around these kids. And if you're going to work for Red Lake Nation College, that's what you have to do. That's not my job or that. And teachers have left because they can't do that. And that's what you have to do if you're going to be a teacher here. I expect that, and so does my counterparts, because of the students coming from our local schools of surrounding area are not preparing them for college. It's how can you teach 30 kids in a classroom? You're spending half of the time disciplining. You just can't do it. So we're like a private school. That's the difference we do with others. The other thing is that we make sure that we have a food pantry here. So our kids need food. If they need help with behavior health, we have a specialized behavior health team, both in Minneapolis and on campus here. So they're always having sessions and counseling sessions, and it's free to them, just helping them cope with life, being a mom, being a dad, having children, trying to do a science project, things like that. It's new to them. It's scary. And plus they want to play sports. Of course, they want to go to powwows, that's part of what they want to do. So they might miss school. So we have to figure out how to get them caught up again. I hope that answers your question. We're like the VA. We're like the VA. You know how the VA has all those specialty care around one patient? That's what Red Lake has, the specialty care around one student all the time.
Yeah, that, and I think the point you made about hiring the right people, the people you tell them right off the bat, this is your job to take care of each one of these students, just like it should be in our clinics. Yeah. So be good for that. I saw one hand raised. Kathy, go ahead.
Okay, I was just trying to get unmuted. First off, that sounds fantastic. I really appreciate that approach. I was just talking to a student, one texted me at 1:30 this morning, but I wanted to ask, it's a broader question, but what did you find as your most challenging barrier and how did you handle it? I know that's a big question, but I want to see how you feel about that and how you dealt with it.
Oh my goodness, we had a lot of barriers. One, just to get accredited. Two, to get the other universities to take our credits. Because they think at times some people that been in a university, they have their PhDs, which we do too, And they have all of these experts that have been in the field a long time. So sometimes as they get older, they sometimes feel other people may be beneath them and they don't realize that they're doing that. So them just accepting our credentials in the big world, uh, and that happens a lot for women, I'm sure. Um, think about how you feel if you're an Indian woman and you're better than some of your coworkers as far as knowledge and work ethic. So that is the case. That was the challenge. And I learned people sometimes don't like Indian Health Service, but they really spend a lot of time training you on different things, especially in the leadership. If you can get in their leadership program, which I did, and I was lucky to get in. And I worked for Honeywell for a while too, and I got in their leadership programs. I don't know, maybe they just felt sorry for this little Indian girl, or seen something, but they brought me in and they taught me. The one big thing that I learn, and I tell my kids all the time, is you can stand there and argue your point, and you probably won't get it. You probably won't get it even defending it. You probably are not going to convince that person. So you just take the high road and be quiet and just keep trying different ways. Just try another door, try another door, try another door. And that's what we did. But one of the things that helped with the accreditation was Dan King, the president, who also is a descendant of Chief Medway Gunanan, who was one of the lead chiefs in the 1889 treaty agreement that Red Lake had conducted with Commissioner Rice. He went to Harvard. He was a treasurer on the council, and he did that thing and got that experience. Then he went on to go get his master's degree at Harvard, and then he was asked to come back by the chairman at the time, and so he said he would, but under the condition that the tribal council is separate from the tribal college, and they all agreed. So there's no interference. So we can run a university like we're supposed to, and we can hire who we need to hire. And so thank goodness he came and helped us get through that. But that was the barrier, the accreditation. And you got to take the high road. You just got to take the high road in every situation.
Thank you.
Thanks, Linda. Do we have any other questions?
I had a question. Linda, thank you so much for sharing your experiences and your knowledge overall. With regard to, can you speak to like how the community is engaged in the broader community where kind of the institution sits, the tribal community? What's the interface with between these different communities and the kind of educational experience for the students?
Well, this week, Danny asked me, when I retired from the federal government, he asked me to come in and work, and I was reluctant to come back to work, but I did. And so I'm the director of operations and extension. But when he first brought me in last April, I was extension. That's to bring the community together and partnership with our college. And some of the grants that were already existent had to have Indigenous traditional things. And so they wanted to create a YOS camp. They wanted to create a maple syrup camp. All of a garden, all of these things. And I had told them, I said, the community's already doing that. They've been doing that for hundreds and hundreds of years. Long before people come to this land, we were doing those types of things. In fact, I share the story that when they come through Bahamas and come up Florida there, and they were looking around all over, and there was just miles and miles of wheat and different plants. They didn't realize that they were trampling all over our gardens back then. But one of the things that we bring in, just Monday, we went out and I actually went out to the sugar bush, first time ever, because I was always so busy in life. And I took the syrup out of the bags and put them in and I can send you a video. Put it in a plastic barrel, and then we put it in another barrel because we have to carry it. And we collected 200 gallons yesterday. So it takes 40 gallons to make syrup of sap to make 1 gallon of maple syrup. So our kids can go and they'll probably go out to the camp. So that's something that we do. They also ricing, wild rice. There's generational families that rice. And so if you ask them nicely, they may let you come and experience that. In fact, they probably would want to put you to work because it's very labor intense work. Harvesting our rice and then processing it, et cetera, et cetera. So that's another area that we do. Then, of course, the gardens are all over our reservation. People have their individual gardens, so we don't need to reintroduce things that have already been done for years and years. And I had to explain that to some of our staff that's already occurring out there, and our students can go and learn from those families. Of course, we have different people who, and I'm a cattle operation, a calf cow operator myself. I have some property off the reservation that I will probably invite students if they want to learn a little bit about that, but it's hard work. I hope that answered your question. Okay.
Yeah, that was perfect. I mean, you gave me more than what I anticipated, so that's wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you, Linda. Go ahead, Michael.
Hey there, my name is Michael Westhoff. I'm Navajo, and I have a medical staffing company that I've been managing for a couple of years. I'm curious about when your students finish their courses and they graduated, is there also part of your community that helps onboard a pathway for them to get a job, maybe in healthcare? That's one question. And then the second question is, I have so much respect for you, and you're a culture keeper and a fire keeper. And how hopeful do you feel about the next generation, or even our next generation, on tending the fire that you've been able to do?
Well, thank you for that. Part of my keeping that spirit going is I'm a very strict teacher, mother, and grandmother, very strict. And so the kids know the they know that I know the protocol and I'm not just messing with them. They know I know it. So they'll listen. Because there's women's things to do in our community and there's men's things. Neither one of them is beneath. And so what's happened is sometimes our elders will say we're unbalanced because some of the guys are not doing what they're supposed to be doing and the women are doing them. So we're trying to put that back into balance, and we'll get there. Now, I'm sure that our grandparents thought, oh my goodness, are they going to be able to carry this forward? So I'm going to say to you, I have no doubt that our future is going to be around and we're talking these same things 100 years from now. Just because we have these universities and just because we're doing these things, they're learning. And it takes you 50 to 60 years to learn these things and be confident in these areas. And of course, I'm going to be 67 next year. That's why you see that confidence. And I'm also ex-military in Intel. So I'm very, very knowledgeable in a lot of areas, but I'm very knowledgeable about our jingle dress and the way of life because I had a grandparents that spoke the language, and my mother, she's still alive. And so if I forget something, I go back and ask her, did you do this? And one of the questions they talk about is trauma. A lot of times trauma, the new zing words I'm hearing in our kids today, so I'm trying to learn this too, is trauma, understanding that. And then the other one is space. This is my space. So we have this space. So these kids talk about this. So I'm learning what that means. I'm thinking, okay, what does that mean? With trauma in Red Lake, I keep telling our kids because they speak about trauma, about boarding schools. And I say, you guys, Red Lake did not have to go to boarding schools. So there's no trauma. You shouldn't have any trauma in your life or your grandparents' life or whatever, because we had schools here already, and we had things established here. Now, if they wanted to go to boarding school, I asked Mom, why did you have to go to boarding school? She says, no. Well, why did some of them go? She said, because there was no economics on our res. There was no jobs. There was no food. So in order for their kids to be safe and get a good education, they would elect to go to these different boarding schools. And most of them did well in those boarding schools. You know, they came back with an education, and some of them went on to school, to college, and finished. So there's a lot of success stories that we hear, but the key is education. The education is so important in every family. You still can be a traditional person that speaks the language with a PhD or an MD. You can. You can still dance, and you can still make fry bread when you want to, right, Amanda? Learn how to make it, and you can still clean your house. I'm on my hands and knees and still clean them the way my grandmother taught me how to do it. I don't use a mop. I do it that way. I don't think I can find a maid service that could do that for me. I'm very old school and on many, many things.
Thank
I
you,
hope that
Linda.
answered.
I think we have time for one more question.
One more.
Melissa, I see your hand up. Go ahead.
Yes, I was going to actually go back. Sister Wahpeton College, we talk about career paths. We just recently are trying to keep connections, of course, in nursing. We just restarted our program here a few years ago. And not just when they get done and they are successful and pass their boards, but we're trying to keep connected with them and help them on their path if they want to go on for their RN, if they want to go on for their BSN, because that's what we're here for. A lot of times they don't have the family support to encourage that. So that's what we're trying to continue with our graduates, our recent graduates that want to continue on the nursing path.
So your question is?
Well, I was just commenting to Michael had asked about pathway.
Oh, yeah, pathway. I forgot to answer that, Michael.
That's
BSU automatically, which is 30 miles, 40 miles from here, automatically takes our AA degree, no questions asked. So they go right into their field. Behavioral health is a big need in Red Lake. So in order for them to come back and work, and we got an AAS degree that was just we just got accredited, I guess, allowed, and because we need a lot of behavioral health. But another thing we need is billers. Billers make good money, and people want to stay here. And then we're going to nursing. I really encourage our nurses, because I worked very hard at IHS to get our nurses from GS. They're just so low paid. I got them up to at least a GS 10. We were able to get that done. And that, I don't know if any other facility has done that, but we were able to do that in Red Lake. And the secret to that was I just had some friends who were in Aberdeen who were in the HR piece. And so we put the language right in there, and then they pushed it through so that we could use that language in these job descriptions in order to get them up to GS10s. We also have relationships with the University of Minnesota's Morris. There was all the University of Minnesota's except for Duluth, which we're working on, and the University of Minnesota. But the credits transfer. The credits even transfer to Notre Dame. I'd like to see somebody graduate from Notre Dame, but who can afford that? That's a good school. So yes, our pathways, and we're starting I'll be teaching accounting next spring. A lot of times our kids don't want to do a full 4-year degree or even a 2-year degree. So we got an 18 credit business certificate. So that gets them the major courses in business so that they can go and work with the treasurer's office and understanding audits and the flow of business. And hopefully that will create businesses for our tribe, to take that leap and like the Seminoles, take that leap and borrow $900 million and buy Hard Rock, something like that.
Thanks, Linda. I want to also thank Michael for that. Kathy, we're getting close to time, and Adrian has her hand up there. But I do want to thank you, Michael, for that question. I think it's a part of the pathways that we haven't thought about, that last step into, and I know we have a lot of medical students who are ready for their careers, but they always get pulled into leadership. And so that piece as well that you mentioned, Linda. So thank you
Yeah.
both for that. I'm going to turn it over to Adrian, and then if we have a couple of minutes, we'll fit in a short question, Kathy. But to Adrian, you're next.
Okay. I just want to say, Linda, thank you so much. That's wonderful. I'm curious, and this is kind of goes off of Melissa's question. I'm curious how your institution engages families, especially for our first generation students, in understanding the transition to college. They're shifting their roles, they're shifting their responsibilities, and that really the students may need to spend more time focused on their studies and less time at home. Yeah, because I think I've seen a lot of that even with students that I mentor, or yeah, just how do we explain to the families that this is a, going to school is not easy. It takes a lot of brain power, learning power. So I just would like to ask that question. Thank you.
That's a perfect question because, you know, when we have a funeral, we all got to drop what we're doing and just get over there and we have tasks for 3 days and it's exhausting. So what I tell the kids to do, and we talk with the parents too, is we say, at least I do, because I know I'm familiar with our community, so I can talk to some of them some of the grandmothers their grandchildren are going to school and they're my students, and I'll say, you know, when something happens, I said, can you just let them only have one assignment to do and not be there every night to while they're going to school? I said, that's how you can support them. That seems to be working. Another thing that works is that they're in transition sometimes at 8 or 9 o'clock taking a class, and they're trying to get their kids to school. So their phone, they can use their phone and tie up their email and sign into class and at least listen to the lecture during that time. So remote learning is really helped, I think, America get more kids their education. So we make sure they can be in person or they can be online, whichever one they want to choose to do. So those are just little tweaks. Every time a barrier comes up like that, then we as a team work at it and work with the families. And I just have to tell the students, you just got to tell the students, or you just got to inform the students or mentor the students, say you just need to tell your family no sometimes.
Thanks, Linda, and thanks, Adrian, for that great question. Linda, what I love about your response is that talking about a team coming together to address each of those barriers as they come up, and that's a fantastic solution. So thanks. Kathy, can you fit in a tiny question, a short? Okay.
And in fact, Linda, you answered part of it. I just had a parent that I helped the teenagers, but now the parent is in a situation in the health department that would love to have that 18 credit business certificate.
Yes.
She is now having to do financial management, and she reached out to me. I found some courses out there, but this would be wonderful. She's located in rural Colorado, and I would like to, I'll put my email in there. If you could write me, I think this would be wonderful because you can do it remotely, you said. That whole certificate program. Okay, I'll stick my email.
And I'm a phenomenal accounting teacher in audits. Phenomenal.
Yes. They helped me learn how to make a business.
Yes.
Thank you.
I have a question.
I can't see you. This is
yeah, my name is Meredith Thomas. I'm actually calling in from the IHS by way of Hopi Healthcare Center, which is located in Palaka, Arizona. Very rural, remote environment. One of the questions I have is, I know we're talking about resources and basically kind of building these pathways, but how are we engaging, I guess, the state level resources from educational institutions such as the Arizona Board of Education and so forth, considering that a lot of this administration now has made decisions in regard to legislation in terms of allocation of funding being state basically the state being responsible for that for tribal communities. Is there any engagement there that we're actually taking in terms of our representatives in helping to assist these type of transitions happening?
So the Hopi, you get your money from the federal government, right? Not the state, correct? Okay, so that'll continue. how much they allocate to the Hopi hospital, that particular hospital, is basically what we're going to get, what you're going to get. You need to do the third party collection piece to gain more revenue so that you can, and this is what Red Lake did. Red Lake split off their tribal program, took on 638ing the doctors so that we can pay them industry standards and some of our nursing because we as IHS can't pay what we should be paying these people. And that's what they did. So they took the 638. That's another whole story. But that's how we were able to get doctors to stay here and be able to pay them 250, 300,000. And the nurses too, that the tribal took them over and they decide how they spend their budget.
Meredith, was your question, I think I heard it wrong. Was it on healthcare or was it on education?
No. You know, you're talking about building educational pathways, right? So that would involve like communities becoming involved, which would be like, let's say K through 12 in rural and remote environments. How do we begin to even, I guess, express that to that age group and then also address the systemic barriers within those communities that involve educational opportunities being advertised or developed, so on and so forth, because a lot of those are from state funding, right? So my question is how is that being looked at, or how do we begin to address that?
Well, when I was in high school, I knew that this Red Lake High School that I went to school with for my last 2 years of high school was not preparing anybody for college. And it still isn't. It really isn't. I'm just going to say it. But that's why I wrote the resolution and got it passed at the council, because we needed a college here that was going to put these kids through 6th through 12th grade and 2 years of college, get them ready. And that's how we fixed what your same situation you're probably having in your hometown, is those schools are not preparing them because probably lack of funding or rural area. Am I correct? Is that answering that?
I think in part, I think Meredith, I think what you're getting at is the bigger issue about the current administration, for instance, cutting the Department of Education, and with that, the funding that goes to each of the states for that education. Is that what you're speaking to?
Is that what you're speaking to?
Yeah, I'm speaking to that, but I think that's exacerbating the issue. But I think the issue in itself has been in existence for a number of years.
Yeah.
Because I can go back to when I was in high school, when I actually learned chemistry from a textbook rather than hands-on training in regard to chemistry. So by the time I got to college and basically had to do chemistry, I was like, what is this? You know, this pipette, what do I do with this pipette? I've seen it in a book, yeah, but I've never actually put it to hands-on training to do that, because there's a lack of funding to do that. And I know that a lot of basically the healthcare professions is involved in the STEM system. So if we don't have that, then how do we begin to expect that from representatives that are within governmental institutions, I guess, is kind of what I'm asking. And the reason I say that is because here at Hopi, basically we're trying to implement a program internally, which is called the CROP program. And it does involve basically kind of building partnerships outside of our facility, but then we're also on a very slippery slope being a federal facility. So in saying that, what I've discovered through this whole entire thing of building these partnerships and stakeholders is that a lot of programs called CTEs, right, which are technical kind of things in high school, those are not being offered in most tribal communities, in particular Hopi. So in saying that, why is that the case? Because when I asked the question, why is this not being offered here? What I was informed was it was never asked. It was overlooked. So now we're kind of having to go back in a huge circle to get all of this situated and find every single key player to get that implemented.
Yeah. These are really great questions as to the entire pathway experience that I think we are also going to be digging into in more than one session today. And with that note, thank you so much, Linda, so much for your remarks today. And thank you to everybody for your great questions. It is time for us to move on to our next session, which hopefully will be answering some of these more questions that we have. I'd also like to encourage